Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hey everyone, this is the Guitar Speak podcast. My name's Matt Wakeling. Thanks so much for joining me. This is the show I've produced in Sydney, Australia since 2016. I get to speak to lots of leading guitar players and guitar figures. And for the last 8-10 months or so, I've been joined by my friends Rob Rhodes.
Hey Matt.
And Gabor Josika.
Hey guys, how are you?
For our iconic album series, and we've verged into some other iconic areas, some other themed episodes like our favourite Beatles moments, cool guitar moments in films, all kind of stuff like that. So we're continuing on with this theme. In today's episode, we're talking about Oddball Gibson guitars. Now, when we talk about Gibson, just to back up a little, Orville Gibson, the original Gibson, started building instruments in 1894. By 1902, check this out for a name, the Gibson Mandolin Guitar Manufacturing Company Limited was launched.
Great name.
Imagine fitting that on a headstock. So they launched. So we're talking about 120 years of history, and I know, like you guys, we love the history of some of these companies, and over 120 years, you're going to have some high points, some low points, some weird stuff, some super cool stuff. That's a lot of time. So this is what I love. So often, not just musical instrument companies, but plenty of companies will follow the fashions of the day, or they'll try and exploit the cutting edge technology of the day, and how that stuff ages. Sometimes it ages really well, sometimes it doesn't. And I just find it fascinating. So that's what we're going to have a dive into. Some people like to hate on Gibson guitars for various reasons, but that's not what this episode is about. This is very much an affectionate look at some of the quirky guitars. There will be some head scratching, trying to work out what the heck was going on.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to jump in. So this is our top 7 quirky guitar oddballs. Gabor, do you want to kick us off?
Okay, so I'm going to start us off with a bit of a head scratcher, and it's one of 3 guitars, 2 of which aged very well. This one, So the Gibson Modern is the one I would like to talk about. So
nice.
It was I've got it on June 27, 1957, right? Ted McCarthy was the president of Gibson at the time, filed 3 patent designs. Now, 2 of those seem to have aged quite nicely and are quite like guitars. One of them is the Flying V, the other one is the Explorer. Now, the third one was the Modern, which, I don't know. I really don't know what they were thinking with when they were designing that guitar, especially the headstock. It's just the weirdest, weird. Anyway, so it was
can I jump in, Gabor? Here's a rule too, because we're an audio podcast. Everyone can look up these guitars, but I reckon everyone has to try and visually describe the Oddball Gibson they're talking about. So,
okay, imagine putting like in a very cartoony way, a sock over your head with one point of the sock sort of sticking out and the heel bit of the sock sticking out the other side.
Isn't that Gumby's head? Gumby's
head,
that shape.
Yeah, well, Gumby's head.
Totally.
Yeah. There you go.
With those weird... and if you look... The weirdest thing about it is if you look at the strings, they go straight up where the nut is, and then there's this little post, and then they kind of veer off to where the machine heads are. It's weird. It's just bizarre. Anyway, so those 3 designs were made because Gibson was kind of losing market share to Fender, because Fender had the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, which are quite sort of well-received guitars, and they wanted to do more forward-looking designs, which Flying V Explorer, I can totally see it. But yeah, with that, yeah. And so anyway, all 3 of those guitars were shown at NAMM 1957, or prototypes were shown. And after that, because of the very poor reception of the Moderne, the Gibson decided to not go ahead with making a Moderne. Now, some Gibson employees say there were never any prototypes made. It was just drawings that were shown. Others say there were some prototypes made. Others say some of the workers actually took the parts home and made the prototypes at home because Gibson didn't want it done in their factory. So it's sort of one of those, not quite sure if there were ever actually any Modernes in those days. But in 1980, at the NAMM show in Atlanta in those days, Gibson reissued the never really issued to begin with Moderne as part of the Heritage series. And it also made an Epiphone version of it in Korea. And in 2013 there was a Zakk Wylde Moderne of Doom, so the reissues that they made in 1980 didn't have, or some of them had the wonky headstock, some of them had the weird wonky V headstock. It's sort of like if you imagine Spock doing his Vulcan greeting, it's a bit like that, just he maybe has 3 fingers on one side, 1 finger on the other side. It's sort of like a weird offset V look. So some had the weird Gumby headstock, some had the kind of offset V headstock. The Zakk Wylde Moderne of Doom had that weird offset V headstock. And of course Floyd Rose and EMG pickups, and it had pinstriping on it. It didn't have the bullseye thing that he usually does. It had pinstriping on it. So what do you guys think of the Moderne?
Well, didn't they also do one with the traditional Flying V headstock too? Because when I was looking at photos, there was like the 3 different Modernes, and it had the Flying V headstock. Possibly
the Epiphone ones, I think. Possibly they were the ones that had the Flying V headstocks. Okay.
To me, it looks like they got an old Chevy, that used to have the big fins in the 50s, and they just got a chainsaw and cut through like the rear panel with the fin and went, this is a good shape. Yeah. It's like, Ted McCarty just went, well, let's trace that. But then when he came, he didn't know what to do at the the bottom quarter panel. So he tried to draw a straight line, but it didn't quite work. But yeah, it totally looks like the fin off one of those, old Chevys or Dodges or Fords,
It's just odd.
Totally.
And just the headstock. The headstock is bizarre. It's just one of those ones where you just really wonder why. Why?
Just why? I kind of dig them. The first time I read about one, I think it was in a Guitar Player magazine, and there was an 80s guitarist, David Tinsley, I think, a blues player, who played one of the reissues. I thought, man, that looks pretty cool. But yeah, the headstock is Bizarro land.
Yeah.
It's not as if you're not having trouble tuning, a bunch of Gibson guitars already, keeping in tune. Let's just divert the strings at another 35 to 40 degrees.
It's the weirdest angles too. It's not like normal looking angles. It's really weird. And if you look at the machine heads too, because of the weird, it's not a straight kind of V shape on the outside. It's sort of curved.
Yeah.
So the what would be the D, I guess. If the machine head of the D is sort of pointing almost towards you, almost.
Yeah.
Like back. Anyway, it's
Can you also see that, like when you look at it next to the V, we'll get to the V soon, but it was like someone went, how are you supposed to play this on your knee? And someone just went, brrr, with a saw. There you go. You can sit on your knee now. And that's how it
flying V for weddings. That's perfect.
That's a jazz
sit-down
V.
players.
It's a jazz V for when you sit down.
Jazz V. I love it. All right. Thanks, Gabor. Modern. That's on the list for sure. Rob, what have you got?
So I've gone the traditional. My one's from the same era, the 57 design released in 58. So I'm going to kick off with the Flying V, which, Gabor's covered the history of when these three models were released. 81 Flying Vs were shipped in between 58 and 59. And the guitar's listed for $247.50 US. Wow. So to give you some idea, the Carina, they were made of Carina, and the reissues retailed for $10K US recently, and they made the same amount of them. And so they were $16K here, I think. There's some on Reverb. You can get one. But, the Flying V was just a radical design. And for anyone that's owned them, I've owned a couple. I've got one at the moment. I've got a Carina Flying V now, but a Bacchus Japan one. And
by the way, there aren't many people I think that can pull off Flying Vs, but all the photos I've seen of you playing it, you can really you're pulling it off, man. You really are.
You're making it work, Rob. 100%.
Thanks. Must be those crazy striped pants. It just sets it off perfectly.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
But it started with Lonnie Mack and the players over the years that got me into Flying Vs were obviously Hendrix and Albert King. And then through the 90s, you got Lenny Kravitz, Tom Jamont, who was more the Hamer, but, brought attention to that body shape. Same with Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. And so they were sort of everywhere. And now the latest crop is, Joe Bonamassa's flying the flag high for the Flying V. But they're really interesting guitars for someone who's I'm a predominantly Gibson player now, that when you have Les Pauls and stuff for a lot of years, you get used to that tone and you think, hey, this is same pickups, almost the same electronics, same company, but how different a V sounds to all those other guitars and how light. The other thing I didn't realize is how light Carina is, super light.
Yeah.
And, and you just throw that guitar around. They all came with PAF pickups, but there's this kind of mid-honk to them that get them to cut through. You can hear that in Lonnie Mack, and you can hear that in Albert King's playing. It's right there. Not so much with Bonamassa because he's, quite saturated sound. But, they definitely have a look. The original ones had a little, for anybody who's looking up what they looked like, they had this little rubber slip on the side, so it didn't slide off your leg. Yeah. So, and it was recessed too. So they cut a recess in it. It wasn't just glued onto the body, but they recessed it out and inset it. So it's quite interesting that, they thought about that and put those in there. And it's for anyone with OCD, it's a beautiful guitar for that. It's perfectly symmetrical, straight down the middle, the headstock. I'm a lover of the Flying V. And, as I said, they were radical and space age. And somehow, after all these years, 60 years, they still look radical. And, they don't look normal. And thankfully it's
timeless, definitely timeless design.
Yeah. And, so what are your thoughts on the V, Matt?
Oh, I dig the V. I dig all these shapes, man. The V rocks. It does take me back to as a kid looking at electric guitars and realizing they didn't have that hourglass shape like an acoustic. They didn't have to. Unreal, man. So seeing Vs blew my mind in the 80s, the players playing them. What I think is fascinating with the V2, correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't take off in the late 50s. I think Gibson dropped it pretty soon after.
Yeah.
But it took 70s metal guys who were buying them secondhand to help the resurgence. And then I think it was at mid-70s anyway, Gibson reissue them, and I don't think they've been out of the line since.
Yeah, because the 71's got the rounder, weirder headstock. So there's a few changes, and then there's the 80s metal ones. There's the bigger pick guard as well ones, and there's a few different ones around. Some of the most expensive ones are the signature models, like the Lenny Kravitz one absolutely took off. They made a certain amount of those. And a really strange one, which I was researching last night, was the Grace Potter, which she has a nocturnal brown color, and it's bound, and it's like a beautiful guitar. And that one has just skyrocketed. They retailed for just over $2,000, and now it's really hard to get them for under 10. They're really gone through the roof.
Crazy.
But yeah, Ted McCarty commissioned that particular guitar, and the other one I'm going to talk about with Seth Lover also claims to have had input into the design. And he also came up with the name Flying V, because they were just throwing names around. They're like, oh, that looks like a Flying V. And then the name stuck. So how about you, Gabor? Nice. Thoughts on the V?
The V, probably my earliest memories of Vs would have been Lenny Kravitz. I think that was, I mean, I'm a child of the 90s. I was never a big sort of metal guy. And I guess maybe Scorpions. He had the sort of the black and yin and yang kind of one. Didn't he? Yeah, he had that sort of black and white.
Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
Keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking.
And keep on rocking. So yeah, they were probably my earliest memories. I really like them. I always liked them. I always liked the look of them. It's one of those guitars where I always wonder, would I get away with playing one? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But you look great with it, Rob. And no, it's a cool guitar. The only thing is, like you said, when I've tried them in music shops, you got to do and it's so douchey. You got to do the thing where you between the legs, and it's just nah.
Do you know, it's
or
funny?
you do the thing where you hold it, your arm,
put your arm through.
There's
and that's just not right. That's just not right.
It's great because
levels.
The Bacchus one I've got two strap buttons, so depending on where you are, you can adjust it. And I always like the one on the back of the neck better than the one on the top of the body. But I do a little shtick on stage with it and go, you know, this is my bug out guitar, because in a flood you can use it as a paddle. In a fire you can use it to clear brush and scrub to get through. It's a great weapon in the zombie apocalypse. And then on the other night it was perfect to hit balloons back at the punters.
Yeah, so, I saw that sort of
rock and roll, man. Love it. So yeah, I mean, it's so ubiquitous. It's in some ways it's not an oddball, but you're exactly right, Rob. When it came out, people were like, what is this thing?
Yeah, and to only ship 81 until they were reissued, you know, crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to move forward a couple of decades and look at the Gibson Corvus.
Oh yeah. It
was very short-lived. They were built between 1982 and 1984. Which is really the end of the Norlin era of Gibson, which is pretty much widely panned as a low point in Gibson's history. Probably matching, you know, following CBS over at Fender, the same similar kind of time frame, little different but similar. And meanwhile, all the Japanese companies were really kicking the American companies at this stage. So the Corvus, I first saw one in a book. My wife got me a book in the early 90s. It's called The Ultimate Guitar Book by Tony Bacon. Yeah, got turned to the page. There's this can opener looking at me with a Gibson sticker on it.
That's a good description, actually.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I didn't make that up, but I will pass that on. Yeah, so it's nicknamed the can opener. What I recently found out, though, Corvus is the Latin word for crow. And apparently a crow in flight.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a photo that's overlaying a picture of the crow on it. So yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I guess I can sort of see it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone has unkindly said, well, if it looks like a crow, it looks like a crow going to the bathroom. So if you're taking the whole body design, I don't know. but it just looks bonkers. And I guess it's as I was saying in the intro, I guess it's maybe a victim or a victor of the fashion, because we're talking about early 80s.
New wave.
I'm thinking of new wave bands like Devo playing those like cut down guitars and
the log, yeah.
Yeah, essentially the 2x4 guitar. Yeah. I think it was a Bob One.
They missed an opportunity with Flock of Seagulls then, didn't they?
Oh, totally.
They could have said it looked like a seagull.
Yes. That would have made sense.
Sorry, Will Smith's just come in to slap me for that one.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Ooh. Too soon?
How quick were all the memes? Hey, like we're talking minutes. Within minutes. There were 3 Corvus models. There was the Corvus 1, had one humbucker. Corvus 2 had 2 humbuckers. Corvus 3 had 3 single coils. There was a deluxe model called the Futura, which was not to be confused with the Explorer prototype, which we might get to a little bit later on. Fun fact, I didn't know this, the Corvus is featured in Guitar Hero 1, 2, and 3, the video game.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, crazy looking guitar. Some of the things you see online, people say they actually sound great because they've got a very conventional set of electronics, very simple electronics, unlike some of the other Gibson oddballs that turned up with active circuits and all sorts of things around this same kind of era for Gibson anyway. So, there's the Corvus. Thoughts from the table?
It reminds me of a reverse Ovation breadwinner, like flipped over.
Yeah,
and then like what you were saying before with the modern, that someone just went, oh, hang on, it's sliding off my leg. Hang on, I'll cut a bit out for your leg. So it's like, to me, it looks like you take an Ovation breadwinner, flip it over, and you cut the bit out for the leg to sit on. Yeah, that's it. It kind of has that sort of look, but it's a weird guitar, isn't it? It's another one of those. Yeah. Was it maybe a bunch of people sitting around a table who are not necessarily musicians who go, this is what we need, guys. We'll go and play golf, but 1 second. This is what we need. we need to make a guitar that is cutting edge. You know, I watched the movie Tron. I know what's going on.
Well, this is the head exactly. This is the head scratcher. It's not just one crazy luthier working out of his basement, or her basement. It's a major corporation. Yeah, and surely a few people have to say, "Yep, this is awesome. Let's make this thing." So I love it. It's crazy.
I've got a description of it for people that we have to maybe can't see it. It was like someone came over from California to Michigan and Kalamazoo, and they had a shark tooth necklace, and they went, "That's the headstock." You know?
Yeah.
And then the other one's kind of like, you know, when you first get into pottery and you're trying to make a perfectly round ashtray, it kind of comes out weird and in weird shape. That's it. Like someone, I don't know. Or maybe they saw how Van Halen took to the Ibanez Destroyer with a chainsaw, and they went, let's take that and let's take a few extra pieces off, until they took too many pieces off and went, maybe we went too far. And someone went, nah, we didn't. We didn't go too far. Let's throw it out.
But it's lunchtime. I don't want to start talking about this again.
But it's interesting. I'm looking at one with a Floyd Rose on it. Like, how can that go wrong?
Wow.
How can that go wrong? There's probably a good chance of staying in tune with a Floyd, let's be honest.
That's true. All right, the Gibson Corvus, the can opener, the crow, the shark tooth, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. I reckon we'll do one more before we take a break. Gabor, What do you got next?
Me? Okay. So I'm going to take Rob's Flying V. And I'm going to turn it over.
I know what's coming.
And make a reverse Flying V, or as I like to call it, the Arrow. It's such a weird-looking guitar. So this was a guitar that was conceived as part of the Gibson Guitar of the Week promotion in 2007. So it's a relatively new thing.
That's like cheese of the week.
Sorry?
It's like cheese of the week, or the
cheese of the week, but in guitar form. Yeah,
that's great.
it was released as Guitar of the Week for week 29 that year in 2007 with a limited run of 400. It was made in one color and one color only. And this is actually going back to the Carina thing. So I believe one of the reasons why they used Carina is because it had similar qualities to mahogany, but it was a much lighter color. So they could they could do translucent light colors much easier. And so they did this trans amber finish with gold-plated hardware and a string-through tailpiece. That was the one color that was available. Oh, no, hang on. That was later. Sorry, that was later. But this was mahogany. Sorry, originally it was mahogany. Then later, the reissues, they used Carina because of the color. It had 57 classic pickups, single volume knob, rosewood fretboard, mahogany body and neck. They took the headstock from the Gibson Futura Explorer, the one, again, that offset kind of Vulcan greeting headstock, which was patented in 1958. And because of the extreme success, really, of that guitar, which I don't understand why.
How do you put it on a stand to begin with?
How do you do anything with it? It's just, I don't know. They did the following year in 2008, they did another run. This time they did 900 guitars, which was also, it coincided with the 50th anniversary of the Flying V. And it did a limited run of 900 guitars in 3 new colors. In natural, classic white, and ebony black. And this is where the classic white came in. They used Carina because the Carina is a lighter color and they could do that translucent kind of thing. Yeah, and the natural color being very similar to the Trans Amber. So they did 300 of each of those colors with a limited run. The specifications were practically the same. They changed it to an ebony fretboard for the 2008 reissue. As opposed to the rosewood fretboard. I mean, that's really the only thing. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on the Arrow guitar, the reverse Flying V?
Well, there's a few questions. There's
there's many questions.
Guitar of the Week, there must be people who bought every single one. There must be some collectors with deep pockets who did that, which is
yeah.
off topic, but very interesting. Flying V, yes. Reverse V, no.
No.
That's all I can say.
Definitely.
I mean, it's fun. It is fun.
No, well,
it is fun, but do you have to do it?
Yeah,
that's the question.
Yeah,
it's a fun idea, perhaps.
Rob, now I can see you.
Rob could pull it off.
I could see you pull off a reverse Flying V.
Totally.
Look, as a good friend once told me, he makes his money on the upper frets. And a reverse V, if he had it, he would make any money. Shout out to Robbie Fry. Upper fret access looks like an issue for me. And someone who's just discovering those upper frets, I don't want that impeding my ability to make that money. But yeah, it's totally weird. The control, there's one I was looking at where the control layout is up on the lower bout. The pickup selector is the furthest thing away, and there's 3 knobs.
Yeah.
One even has a vibrola on it, a vibrola tailpiece. I'm like, but there's some craziness about this guitar. But, one thing Gibson's consistent of is making it difficult for guitarists who buy their guitars to put them on stands. Okay? And this is a whole new level. So from Firebirds to Vs to Explorers to reverse Vs to whatever else weird and wacky, it's honestly like what they can't be guitar players, right? Honestly, it's got to be having a laugh.
But it's genius marketing because it's add-on stuff too. So you have to buy their cases because no other guitar case will ever fit in that. So it's add-on stuff. You've got to buy the special Gibson reverse Flying V guitar stand. It's important. It's add-on stuff.
Yeah, I guess. How do you get a reverse flying V Pelican case?
Well, you buy the $4,995 Gibson one.
I think for a laugh and a gimmick, it's great. But I'm gonna say no to the reverse V.
Yep.
There you go. I think that's a fair call. It's a fair call. But a great oddball. Great oddball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with some more oddballs and our listener question of the week. Woo-hoo. This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. Welcome back. We are talking Gibson oddballs. Now, we've got a question of the week from Chad Wynn. Now, this is super cool. Chad, I'm going to get him on the show soon. Chad actually worked in the Gibson factory. He was in the 9-man team working on the Firebird X, which, no surprise, is going to get a mention tonight. Coming up soon.
Don't take it personally, man.
Well, it's funny that I put a vote up on Instagram, Firebird X, yes or no. All of my guitar people who I knew who played guitar, everyone said no. People who didn't play guitar, a lot of people said yes. Thought it looked cool. So interesting. Chad said no, even though he was on the team that built it, but he's got heaps of cool stories about it. So,
well, that says a lot, doesn't it?
Well, we'll have to find out. I can't wait to talk to Chad. This is going to be awesome. But anyway, Chad.
Sorry, I can see that Gibson NDA has worked wonders.
Possibly. Perhaps enough time has passed.
Yeah.
But Chad's question was, though, question of the week, what is the best recorded version of the classic PAF or the classic PAF sound? Which is such a good question for us tonight, talking Gibsons.
Absolutely.
Who wants to go?
All right, yeah, I'll kick off. For me, it's Edward Van Halen is the greatest recorded PAF tone in history.
I love it. Yeah,
that's a bit controversial, isn't it?
Because not only that, so there's a whole story behind it, right? And it's heartbreaking because when there's interviews with him where he said he basically bought classic Gibsons, 335s, Les Pauls, everything to get the PAFs out. And then not only that, he wax potted them himself and destroyed how many we'll never know. He said, I melted the bobbins. They turned into a big puddle because I had the wax too hot. And he said trial and error, which we still don't know how many PAFs he destroyed. But for him to finally get it right, wax pot them, and Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, Fair Warning, like all those guitar sounds are that homemade boogie body Charvel Strat with a PAF cut horribly out with a chisel and just dropped into the body, drilled directly into the body. That I think that you just took it to the next level. It was a low output humbucker, and close second for me is Paul Kossoff from Free. I think, they're my top two PAF recorded sounds. Anything he did live or on record. Yeah, fantastic.
Wow, cool. I love it. I didn't think of Eddie, but of course he was doing crazy stuff with those. Paul Kossoff was one of mine as well. So the PAFs, from what I understand, we're talking 57 to 64 when they were making the PAFs. So things changed up a little bit after 64. But yeah, Paul Kossoff had a 59 Les Paul standard. So I'm with you. The All Right Now is probably the classic Free track, but plenty of other stuff on that stuff too. How about you, Gabor?
So I'm going to be one of those people who's kind of ignorant towards all this stuff. So I picked, just because I knew he has a guitar that has a paff in it, I picked Jimmy Page. And I particularly I always liked the sound of Physical Graffiti. I know he used other guitars on there too, but the paff is on there for sure because he used either his number 1 or number 2, depending on the day, I guess, what the tunings were in and stuff. And I always liked the guitar sounds on it because every song, it's quite a different sound. And also what I find with that album, lots of effects used, but subtle.
Okay, yeah.
Unless you really know the effects of it. So I always had a thing for Physical Graffiti, so I picked that. And I mean, you've got Jimmy Page. I mean, you've got to throw Jimmy Page in there.
Nice.
Absolutely. Fun fact about Jimmy Page's number 1, it was a gift from Joe Walsh.
Wow, nice.
It was, actually, I read about that too. And all that Jimmy Page had to pay for the guitar was reimburse Joe Walsh's plane ticket, because Joe Walsh didn't want to send it. He delivered it himself. So he flew to visit Jimmy Page in England and gave it to him, and Jimmy reimbursed him for the flight tickets.
Nice.
There's a little fun fact of the fun fact.
Wow. We are going like Inception here. There's facts inside.
It is
facts and facts.
This is very heavy, man. This is very heavy. Another one I'll add is Clapton on the Beano album, the John Mayall and the Blues Breakers album. He's playing a 960 Les Paul, 960 Les Paul, I should say. Also cool tones on that record. A lot of people say he's using a treble booster. A lot of people saying he's not. I don't know if he is, but it sounds awesome. It sounds great. So I'll chuck that one in there too.
Oh, there's so many, like anybody who has a 59 burst basically is they're the paffs, from Lukather to Joe Perry, and they're all there, man. Bonamassa. Yeah. It's the sound of blues rock, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Probably my favourite humbucker in my gigging guitars is a Paff Pro, quite an old one from the 80s.
I'm the same, man. Paff Pro is, pretty much my favourite all-round pickup in the bridge position. Wow. Even in the neck. Yeah. I've got them in my Washburn N4.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got 2 of them in that. And they coil tap good too.
Yeah, I've got the Fishman classic humbuckers, which are meant to be Paff style, circuit board things. I don't know, they're different, the whole Fishman Fluence thing. But it's a great sounding pickup. I've got it in an old Greco Les Paul, and it's cool. It's much more single coily than a lot of people think. It's not like a super fat humbucker. It has a chiminess to it, which is actually really nice.
Yeah, they're low to medium output. Like in my SG, I've got the DiMarzio 59s, and then in my 335 is the Gibson Classics. So they're paffs as well, based on the paff. They just seem, especially in the 70s show where you need to get neck sounds and in between sounds and bridge sounds. They really are. They allow the guitar's tone to shine without too much coloration, which I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Nice, good one. Hey, Chad, thanks for the question. And for everyone listening, if you got a question, listener question, shoot it off to us, guitarspeakpodcast@gmail.com, or Instagram or Facebook. Find us on there. Or just yell out down the street stuff, and I'll write it down, and then tell the guys.
Matt!
Ask me at a gig.
Preferably during
come
a
up
song.
to Rob mid-song.
Mid-song is the best time for a conversation.
And just talk right into his ear. It's always good.
Nothing like that spit in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's keep going with the oddballs. I think we're up to Rob. What's your next oddball?
Yeah, so for me, again, I wanted the original oddballs, like Curly and Moe and Abbott and Costello, the classic oddballs. So I went with the Explorer because, again, still, it looks weird. It's been brought into the norm by, the Edge, who has a ton of 76 ones. But in 58, it wasn't popular. Again, it's another one of those ones that from Gibson's official site and from their paperwork, they only shipped 19 of them.
Yeah.
19. You know,
God, imagine how much those are worth now.
I guess
Wow.
who's got them? Rick Nielsen. But Rick Nielsen's got 3 of them, I think, from Cheap Trick.
Oh, wow, okay.
Wow.
He recently did the Gibson TV special, and he took Mark Agnesi into his little guitar storage room, and
That's cool.
man, it's the thing that dreams are made of. You know, like people want to go to Disneyland, and you know, all these people they claim that this is where dreams are made. It's not. It's in Rick Nielsen's back room, storage room. Like that's where dreams are made.
Amen.
And broken, probably.
Most likely.
He tours a lot of those guitars, though, doesn't he? He doesn't have qualms. I guess he's got his super special vintage guitars, but he tours a lot of that really old stuff.
Yeah, he does, but some of that is worth so much now he doesn't take it. And from that Gibson video, it was clear that they're not upkept well.
Right.
Because none of them are in tune. Some of them, like the strings were fretting out. Like they're just there in a case, stacked on one on top of the other, you know.
But imagine tuning his 5-neck guitar. I mean, that would take a while until you get through that, and then
It's hard enough with my double neck, mate, with a 12 and 6 at a gig trying to keep that thing in tune. But yeah, so again, very similar to the Explorer. It was made of Carina, the early ones, and then later on, like the 76, when it was reissued, it was mahogany. Again, it's part of those reissues from 58 that retailed for $16,000 here. And they only made the same amount, so that's why they're so hard to get.
What was the one that Clapton used where he cut off the bit? What year? How old was that one? Because he had that one that with the pointy top bout kind of being cut off.
Yeah, no.
Do you know? Or?
Did not research that. That's a question without notice.
Sorry.
If only we had something we could look that up. But but some of my favourite Explorer moments, obviously the Edge is, he's the guy. He's the poster child for it. And you've seen incarnations with James Hetfield over the years. Very big with the metal guys, the 80s ones and the late 70s ones. But for me, again, it's Tom Dumont and Rick Nielsen that in the 90s that were really... Whoa. That was about $5 worth of petrol there.
That's the main streets of suburban Sydney.
Yeah. But
it's a 58. I just looked it up. 58 Carina Explorer.
So he hacked a 58. One of the 19, he hacked it. Awesome. So there's 18 of them. There's probably less than that because the Nashville floods probably claimed a couple, from Katrina.
I think Clapton wanted it to look like a Moderne. That's what a lot of people are saying.
Good call.
No, it was the owner before him. Sorry to interrupt. It was the owner before him that did it. And he didn't realize that that's not the way they were meant to be when he originally got the guitar, and he was trying to return it to the store he bought it from, Clapton.
Wow.
Because he wasn't aware that that's not the way they are meant to look. There you go. So we find out something new.
There you go. So I fell in love. Like Diesel plays one in the Get a Kick video clip, and I fell back in love with him after seeing him play that. And obviously Eddie played a Ibanez Destroyer version, which we talked about, that he hacked the back out of. And I think one of my favourite current models of the Explorer is the Lizzie Hale signature model, which is ivory. It's very flash. It's got, all the beautiful shiny hardware. It's a beautiful looking guitar, and nice to see a young, female artist flying the flag for some of these classic guitars, So
that's cool.
Oh yeah, that's a very nice. I just looked it up as well. Yeah, there's a white one and a black one.
Yeah, and the guy from Eagles of Death Metal, I think he has a signature model too, which looks pretty flash. So they're still around, but again, they still look radical. They still look futuristic when you compare them to a Strat or a Tele or a Les Paul or a 335 or any of those traditional style ones. They still really turn heads. So Matt, what are your thoughts and memories on Explorers.
Yeah, again, a really, really cool shape. Probably the Edge playing one was one of my first viewings. The Edge, it shocked me. It's funny. It didn't look like the guitar that was making the sound I was hearing.
So again, that's like the V, where it's kind of got a single coily sound because of where the mid focus of that particular body is. Because it's not a carved top, like a Les Paul, and it's not a hollow body like the other ones. They definitely have a very distinct sound. It's a little bit different to the V, but similar in some ways too.
The two questions though: were the Explorers one of the, or were they the first hockey stick headstock or the banana type headstock?
I think it's 58. Yeah, I think it must have been. There wasn't. Yeah, there weren't many other guitars, and Gibson was all about that big, headstock with their hollow bodies, and then to the Les Pauls and stuff. So, yeah, I would say that probably is the first hockey stick, and it makes sense.
That looks awesome, man.
That looks great. It just offsets the body really well, but they're very prone to breaking.
Okay.
The way that
Hey, second question then. Have you guys seen the Futura? So not the deluxe Gibson Corvus, but the Futura being the prototype Explorer?
Yeah, like it's squeezed in the middle. It's a little bit different.
Much more angular and
smaller body, and just it's more like a, what would you say? Yeah, kind of that 1940s, like woman squeezed into a corset kind of around the middle section.
Yeah.
With the big flowing dress, yeah.
And it's got that Mr. Spock headstock.
It does.
Spock headstock, yeah. Well, I thought, man, it's rocking it on this Moderna that may or may not exist, so.
And then there's also the reverse Explorer, which is totally weird. It's just backwards. And that was another quirky oddball just going off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a reverse Explorer, and it has that weird headstock, but the tuners are very different. Oh, mate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that has
so weird. It's got banjo tuners or something.
That's like a...
And the pick guard's a lightning bolt.
Well, that's rock and roll. That's cool.
Wow. That's bizarre.
Gabor's found his new favourite offset guitar.
No, I've always had a bit of a thing for the non-reverse Firebirds.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Firebirds generally. I mean, that could have almost been another one for this, the sort of oddities to Firebird, especially with the banjo-style machine heads.
Yeah,
stay tuned for part 2.
Part 2, yeah, more oddities. But holy that headstock on that thing is just bizarre.
Yeah.
That's even weirder than the Moderna, or at least on par. Or the Modern, sorry.
Crazy.
Modern. What's a Moderna? Is that something? Have I just made that up? I realised I said that a couple of minutes ago too.
I think it's something.
In Italy?
It's probably something you saw at IKEA.
Yeah, probably.
No, that's a vaccine, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's the vaccine.
I knew that. Other brands are available.
Yes.
All right. We're going to move on because speaking of non-reverse Firebirds, I'm going to talk about the Firebird X, which was launched in October 2010. The launch was quite famous because the CEO of Gibson at the time, Henry Josika, came out on stage, smashed a Gibson SG, and then proceeded to tell everyone that the Firebird X was the future and that the revolution and the future is here, which is kind of bizarre. And obviously in recent years, Henry Josika has had, I guess, bad press since Gibson filed for bankruptcy in 2018 and he stood down as CEO and a whole bunch of stuff. But I guess an interesting thing about Josika as well, he was part of the buyout in 86 when he and a consortium bought out Gibson from Norlin, and perhaps in the way that many of us are looking at Mark Agnesi now as the cool dude in the leather jacket who understands guitars.
Well,
Just
I'm going to put some air quotation marks down the cool dude, but anyway.
Okay. Jaskowitz was kind of that guy for Gibson in the mid-'80s who really brought it back from the brink. So obviously lots of water passed under the bridge. But anyway, so he comes out and launches the Firebird X. And what can we say about this? That it was a non-reverse Firebird, which I'm going to push back on Gabor's claim. To me, the non-reverse Firebird looks kind of goofy already. And this just ramped it up 1,000,000%. Which raises a question. Why is the Firebird that everyone knows, well, which most people know as a Firebird, why is that the reverse one? Was the non-reverse first?
I don't know.
Why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know.
We will never know. With this, and with what I find with this particular guitar, if you kind of, to me the headstock is ugly. That needs to change. But if you were to just take the bottom half of it, the bottom half looks quite good on its own. The top half is too pointy. If the top half would be a little bit more subtle, I think it could be quite a good-looking guitar. And maybe not in red and blue, like bright red, bright blue.
Well, when you say red and blue, you mean red illusion and blue dilution.
That's what I meant, of course.
They're the official names for these.
Yeah, better make sure
ugly swirl finishes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
and the maple fretboard with the big X on the 5th fret. But
yeah.
And have you guys seen the video where the tank goes over all of, like, I don't know how many of them and breaks them all?
Well, that's another can of worms. Yeah. So let's just go there. So yeah, in 2019. Gibson destroyed somewhere between 300 and 400 of them. And there's a lot of stories as to why they did it. Some people just say, they're trying to wash their hands of this guitar under the new management. Some people say there was a dispute between the German company who helped make the electronics. Okay. And then they didn't want to be involved in service disputes. I think Gibson themselves said there were unsafe components.
Could blow any second.
Yeah, it was a partnership with Samsung, and they just spontaneously caught fire.
Yeah. The robot tuners, they would tune so fast that the strings would it was just flames.
The robots took a mind of their own, like in Solo, the Star Wars standalone. Yeah, so they were really pushing the technology. So the robot tuners, the 3 mini humbuckers, which were actually almost like a Line 6 Variax in that they were trying to mimic a lot of different types of pickups. It had built-in effects, built-in guitar voicings, had a piezo bridge, had 23 frets. Now, whenever I see a guitar...
They couldn't decide between 22 and... They said, no, 21, no, 22, no, 24. Let's meet in the middle. Let's make it 23.
And let's go play golf. All right. So, yeah, 23. It does my head in. Now, I should say, great friends of the show, Fretboard Biology, Joe Elliott plays a custom Kellerman guitar with 23 frets.
Oh, wow, okay.
I said to him way back when he was on the show, why 23? And it was the most he could fit in with keeping his pickups in the place that he liked. So, fair enough, Joe. All is good. But Gibson, come on. Why? Why 23?
Well, there's a lot of whys there, but
that's not the big why with this guitar. To me, it looked like something like it was a video game controller. It had the mismatched controls, the color-coded switches. It had the sliders on the upper bout.
On the top, yeah. And that X on the 5th fret, that just cheapens it to me.
Yeah, kind
of. Even more.
To me, it says do not play.
And it seemed like, because I mean, the thing is, when you look at a Firebird, a normal Firebird, it's kind of, the whole point is it's somewhat symmetrical. Like with a Firebird, if you cut it in the middle, and you take the top bout and the bottom bout, and you flip one of them over, it's kind of almost the same.
Yeah,
right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So you've got the 2 longer bouts opposite each other and the 2 shorter bouts opposite each other. Yeah. With this, they kind of elongated the wrong parts to me, and that makes it just, again, it's sort of that Gumby thing. It just kind of looks. that should have had that headstock on it. That modern headstock.
But I reckon they went with the original shape, but they couldn't fit the electronics in, so they just kept adding bits until they could fit all the electronics in.
It's like the Homer.
Oh my God.
The car, the Homer.
Yeah.
Oh, the Homer, yes.
Oh.
With the bubble roof.
The bubble and really
Car
big drink
of the future
holders.
today. Oh man, this is just all manner of who was in? Like, you just want to be a fly on the wall in the design discussions because, as you said, Matt,
we'll find out.
It harkens to the Variax and maybe to a lesser extent the Fender Roland thing the partnership that they did. And Gibson went, "Oh, you can do this. Here, hold my beer," and then just proceeded to totally cock it all up, And I think in the end, it got what it deserved, being run over by a tank. But they're going crazy. The used prices now are going crazy. So I don't know what you
because there's not many left because they all have tank damage. This is a non-tank damage.
Minor track issues.
NTD. That's always, if you look at a reverb listing and it's got NTD, no tank damage.
What does that mean?
Totally.
So what year was that released? What year did that come out?
2010.
Okay.
And I can't remember if I said this. I think they released 1,800 of them. They were $5,500 US.
Oh,
a lot of money. I've got a quote here from Peter Hodgson. Peter Hodgson's really respected Australian music and guitar journalist, and he wrote this. I can't tell if he gave it a yes or a no on my Insta vote. But he wrote, I think he gave it a no. He wrote, "I played one and it was fun, just many thousands of dollars too expensive. The built-in effects would be great on a $500 Epiphone." Which, maybe that could have been a better kind of vibe. Then he continues on. I said, "Can I quote you?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure you can." And then he wrote, "The necks were nice, but the overall control system was too complicated. If it was simplified, it could have been something cool. And maybe the plan was to let the technology filter into other products eventually, the way the robot guitar led to the robot tuners, etc." So Pete's played 1 million guitars and reviewed 1 million guitars. So interesting to hear his thoughts there. I can't wait to talk to Chad Wynn. Chad.
Yeah.
Man.
Absolutely.
To get some of the backstory, but I don't know. Anything else we can say about this guitar?
Well, remember the Kawhi organ guitar? Remember that totally whack thing from was it the 60s?
60s, I think. Yeah, the guitar gun.
Yeah, it was
kind of a cool name.
Similar in its reach, what it wanted to do,
And failed doing.
400 buttons and insane. But mad scientists are good for certain things, but I think that they missed on this one.
Yeah, I mean, props for Gibson trying to push the technology. I think was there some Bluetooth going on there as well? I don't know. You could browse the internet on it. I'm pretty sure. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, it obviously didn't take off. Some people say it was the beginning of the end for Juskowitz era Gibson. I don't know. It's strange. It's strange, but it is an oddball, and that's why we're talking about it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I think we've got one more. Gabor, come at us.
Well, the last one is kind of, I guess, then the predecessor to this one to a certain degree because it came out in late 2009, early 2010.
Yeah.
And was the successor to the Darkfire guitar, which was the successor to the robot guitar.
Gotcha. Yes.
So this was the Dusk Tiger. Now, the Dust Tiger, I remember the Dust Tiger. And I mean, it's not necessarily that much of an oddball in the way it looks and stuff, even though it's a quirky look too, actually. But I think the oddball is that it was so hyped, kind of like the Firebird X. I remember all the guitar magazines had these really sort of arty photos of it and stuff and said, the future. Yeah. And then I think it was about that same sort of price, around $5,000-$6,000 price tag. They made 1,000 of them, and it was a massive flop.
Right.
It was sort of going towards the Les Paul recording kind of side of things.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. Yeah.
It had special pickups and everything. So it had magnetic and piezo pickups.
Yeah.
A 4-band parametric EQ system, switchable low Z and high definition impedance circuit, feeding a Nutrix jack with both 1/4 inch and XLR output. So you had an XLR and a 1/4 inch output. The 3rd generation robot tuning technology that provides 18 alternate tunings that players can program. And the body was made out of South American marble wood and ebony. But it's sort of a weird, I don't know, again, explain it to people that can't really see it. I mean, look it up. But it has it's sort of a flat top, so it's not it's not an arch top or calf top. And it has this kind of strange, I don't know how you would explain it, but it's like a mirrory, sort of chromy kind of pick guard that almost looks like a wave, an upside down wave that goes from the bridge pickup sort of under the tailpiece to the knobs, and it sort of comes up the other side. It's kind of odd.
If you look at it from a certain angle, it looks like some sort of crazy dolphin or whale that would have been in Rocco's Modern Life.
Yeah, I can see that.
You turn your head on the side. It looks like the mouth is open with the dolphin eye.
Oh,
it has a little bit actually of the little bit of a kind of a can opener, bottle opener thing going on.
Corvus.
It's maybe there was a nod to the Corvus in that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it was just a really odd guitar. I just remember it being so plugged, like really pushed. Yeah. And then it very quickly went away because A, no one could afford it. And B, it was one of those things that no one wanted. And it was funny, I read a bunch of articles and a lot of the people reviewing it said, instead of giving us a $6,000 thing like this, why don't you just give us a normal Les Paul where the necks won't warp? That was kind of the reviews at the time. Because, at the time, Gibson had a lot of issues with quality control. I remember I worked in a music shop around that time, and we had people order quite high-end Gibson guitars. And again, I'm not putting Gibson down at all because there was some fantastic stuff amongst the two. But some of it was just expensive guitars, and you go, really? How does that come out of the factory? How did they let that come out of the factory? Because there was some really, really big issues. And you almost kind of feel like, I can't give this to the customer who paid, I don't know, $6,000 for this, Australian dollars. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just one of those bizarre guitars.
It kind of reminds me, like, remember the Smartwood series that came out? I think it was probably the mid-90s, wasn't it? Like, the mid-90s, the Smartwood, and they were really good. And when I worked at a particular retailer in Sydney, they had a Smartwood one there that just sat downstairs. They couldn't put it on the shelf for some reason. And it honestly was one of the best Gibsons I'd ever played. I'm so disappointed I never bought it when I had the opportunity because the prices of those are going through the roof now. Speaking of prices, Reverb in July 2019, they were around $2,000 was the price guide. Now the price guide is around $5,200, $5,300, getting up towards $5,500 used. So
for a Smartwood, are you saying?
No, the Dust Tiger.
Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
But,
there's so few made, so I guess it's one of those things where people just go, this is guaranteed to be an investment eventually, eventually when enough people like us talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
People will buy.
I think we're really doing some things for the market with this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
They should. I think all of us should get at least 1 or 2 Gibson guitars for free out of this.
Well, I want to defend Gibson. For a long time I was a Fender player and many other brands, but mostly Fenders. And since doing this 70s thing, I've found that the Gibsons are way more suited to this gig. And there's some real horrible quality control at times. But there's some really good eras of Gibsons, like the early 2000s to maybe 2008. from the late 90s to 2008. There's some really good guitars made. I've been lucky to have a couple of those from 2006, and they're really well made. But when I did work at Allen's, the one thing, and this is going to be controversial, one thing I really hate about Gibson are fret nibs. I absolutely hate them. The one thing I love about the Japanese, like Epiphones, any of those Grecos, any of the top-end Orvals, all of that sort of stuff, is that their fretwork is so much better than Gibson's, and you don't have to put up with the fret nibs. And I just think the fret nibs look like someone didn't want to work too hard and they just paint over the end of the guitar. Well, it's just one of those pet hates of mine. And I know that people talk about it and it's like you want to get them with the fret nibs, but personally I don't get it. I don't like it. And going on record. That's it. Controversial, maybe.
Well, you're not getting your signature series Gibson anymore.
But no, I love Gibson.
Still, but
I love them. I've got a double cut special, 2 P90s, and I've got a 335, and they're two really great guitars. But yeah, there are issues, especially on the used market. If you can't play it, they're really hard to buy. It's not like the MIJs. You can kind of you know what you're gonna get. You can buy them sight unseen most of the time with some decent photos. But with Gibsons, I know my 335 took years to settle, and I bought it second hand. Like, I've had it 10 years. It was already 4 years old then, or more, and it took a long time for it to settle. And it's only settled in the last couple of years where I don't have to do truss rod adjustments every season, and it holds its tune. From putting it in the case and pulling it out after 2 weeks, it holds its tune, but for a long time it didn't. So, I totally understand that Gibson ownership thing, but what you get from them is something special when they are firing,
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt, but Gibson and Fender have shaped electric guitar, rock music, pop culture as it pertains to music in so many ways. So 100%. But with these companies that have been around a long time, there's going to be lots of seasons that are up and down, and it just makes all the stories all the more fascinating. Even you guys talking about the Carina being chosen. I love these stories. The Carina was chosen because it was better to paint or whatever, but it's actually, it's lighter, so it makes for a different feel for the instrument, and perhaps tonally it imparts something different. Man, I love those stories. Like the early tellies were made of pine, and it dented really easily, but some people thought they sounded better, and then the pine went out of fashion. But in the last 10 years,
it's coming back again.
People are talking about pine again as a cool kind of wood. So all these weird decisions that weigh into the final instrument, and I think it's cool. Yeah,
I've got a Brad Paisley signature Esquire.
Yeah.
And it is so light. That's made of pine, and it's super light.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And but with the nitro finish, just leaving the strap on it in the guitar case has left, an impression on the thing that it doesn't want to come off. So they're crazy, but super light, super just resonant. Like we're always sort of told the heavier the guitar, that the denser, everyone wants the heavy ones, they sound better. But as I've matured and gotten older, and the more you learn, the more you listen to the right people, it seems to be that those lighter guitars are the ones that have endured and sound better. The Pine Esquires, the lightweight SGs that Derek Trucks, like he goes after the really light ones. He said they just sound better.
Yeah.
And Carina is super light, and they're all the ones that everyone's after. So.
Awesome. Hey, good times. I reckon there's a whole army of other Gibson oddballs we could have spoken about, but I think we've covered some good ones. Yeah. And again, maybe if there's listeners out there want to give us a shout out for anything we've missed, or add any comments, we'd love to hear that. But before we go, Rob, the hardest working man in showbiz, where can people find out what you're doing? Where you're playing these flying Vs?
Yeah, the easiest place is just my website, which is roadtrip.com. So RHODETRIPENT.com, and all of my solo gigs are there. All of my 70 shows are there. Whatever else, that's the hub for me.
Cool, awesome. And Gabor, I've got a name for you too. Rob's the hardest working man in showbiz. I think you're the hardest working slashy in showbiz. Because you're a performer / content creator / podcaster / teacher / cool dude.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to do the cool dude under quotation marks. But
cool dude. What am I? 14 years old?
I think he's the Hugh Jackman of YouTube.
He is.
Me? I am.
All right, we'll do that. We'll use that.
I'll take that.
That's great, Rob. I love it.
So if you wanna see more of me, go to hughjackman.com. I have a YouTube channel called The SuperFunAwesomeHappyTime Pedal Show, all one word, except for the. The is separate, but then everything else is one word. And I review guitars and amps and pedals, mostly pedals. Myself and my friend Alex, we do that. And we also do a podcast, which you should listen to the Guitar Speak podcast first, but then after that, you should listen to our podcast as well under the same name. And and that's where you can find me. Or if you're living in the sort of Noosa area, at some restaurant or venue at some stage playing gigs in one way or another.
Nice. Who wouldn't want to live in Noosa?
Well, true.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great fun talking about this stuff. Thank you, everyone, for listening and tuning into the Guitar Speak podcast. We'll be back with some more nonsense soon, or you can check out the 200-odd interviews on our site as well. Thanks, guys, again, and we always like to leave our listeners with the words of wisdom from the aforementioned Michael Schenker, who once told me,
keep rocking, keep on rocking.
See you next time.